Um, Hello, people on Facebook Live. My name is Georgianne Catalona. I'm a Hoosier Action member. But I also, and it's not an exaggeration to say this, I'm also someone that's dedicated my life to making a difference for moms and babies and for families. I was a birth doula and childbirth educator for over 20 years and also a nonprofit administrator. All I did for those 20 plus years was work to provide services for families as they had babies. I've been to around 175 births. I've taught hundreds more in childbirth classes, prenatal yoga. I've set up and run everything from selling nursing bras to running lactation clinics to support groups for women who have experienced trauma in childbirth. I can tell you that there is nothing more personal than the decisions that families make around having a baby. I witnessed families facing the same thing and coming to very different, equally valid decisions about what they needed, what they wanted, and how they would change plans in the face of new information and what they would do if things didn't go according to those plans. Every single time, it was an expression of that family's spiritual, physical, economic, cultural, social, and generational values and life. I have also experienced one maternal death through my work. I will never forget going with my childbirth education class to that memorial service, holding the space for them as they wrestled with the death of a stranger who had become a friend, sharing the normal hopes and dreams of first babies, only to have it end in tragedy for one family. So I come to this talking to you all about the special session and thinking about the abortion ban with a really sharp appreciation of how complex, deeply personal, and life-altering the decisions are that anyone makes around having a baby. And I want to tell you that this abortion ban neither respects the deeply personal and private nature of having a baby, nor does it respect the medical community and their knowledge and expertise in this area, the people that we look to guide us through these things. They did not ask the doctors, and they did not ask you. This was a political maneuver. It was a political maneuver, not a decision that would be the best, that this would be the best way to take care of Hoosier families. And it was a gamble. How did they end up taking this gamble now? And how do we know it was a gamble? This special session was called originally to address the surplus. And then when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, a group of legislators saw the opportunity to move forward on banning abortion. The supermajority, that's what we call it when you have a concentrated amount of power with one party that holds like the governor, the House, and the Senate in a state legislature, or any legislature really. But so we have a supermajority of Republicans. They hold the governor, they're the majority in the House, and they're the majority in the Senate. So they have campaigned on this issue of abortion for decades, literally for decades. But now they faced actually having to draft a bill and navigate the details. They knew that the general public was not with them. They did their own polling, and they knew the other polling that was out there. I think it's already been mentioned. I think Kate brought it up, that the public, the majority of Hoosiers, overwhelmingly support legal access to abortion in the first trimester, with many supporting few to no restrictions on access to abortion care. This created a tension that showed up in several ways. Legislators releasing their own statements about abortion that didn't align with the main party line. One legislator even broke with the rest of them over the bill not being restrictive enough. And in a rare show of disunity, we don't typically see this, votes in the legislatures, they were moving the bill forward, they were not strictly on party line. The session lasted 2 weeks. They took 2 weeks to decide something so incredibly important for the rest of us. I don't know if you want to stop sharing the screen for just a moment. I feel it's a little weird to have the screen this way just right at the moment, but.
I can. Do you, how much? I can.
Okay, just for a moment more, all right? I like seeing you all while I'm talking this much to you. So I'll wrap this part up very soon, and we'll get into the nitty gritty of it all. The legislators heard hours of testimony with no one, and this is really important to realize, no one spoke in support of the bill. The testimony was either arguments for banning abortion or maintaining access to abortion. No one spoke saying, wow, this is a really good bill and we like it. We like how it was written. We think it's really great. Medical professional associations all spoke with one voice against the bill and the idea of banning abortion. Many religious leaders spoke, most in favor of a ban, but some in favor of keeping access to abortion care. Then there were many heartfelt personal stories coming from a wide range of perspectives. But again, not one person said, this bill accomplishes something really useful. So we're going to talk, I'm going to go through like what the abortion ban actually says, and we're going to have some slides. And I know that when we go through this, stuff will come up for everyone, and we're just going to ask that we kind of hold all the questions for the end. Of course, you're welcome to put things in the chat as you need to, and I won't be able to monitor it, but other people will be. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Now back to the slides. I guess that was a really short time to have them up. All right. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is SB 1, it's called. That means it was Senate Bill 1. It was the #1 bill that they dealt with in the special session. And next slide, please. And let's just look. Here's a basic reminder of when the bill goes into effect. So can I get an abortion right now in Indiana? Yes. Abortion is legal in Indiana up to the 22nd week of pregnancy until September 15th, 2022. Now, there are restrictions that were in place earlier, but basically, yes, you still have the right to it now. After September 15th, can I have a first trimester abortion? No. This is a 0-week span. The exceptions are if you were raped, the victim of incest, or the doctor determines that the pregnancy is a risk to your life or a serious threat to your health. It was originally only life, and they amended the bill and included health, but health is only physical health. It does not include mental, psychological, emotional, nor the threat of suicide. Next slide, please. Can I get the abortion pill? So when we talk about the abortion pill, we're meaning a medication abortion, and the answer is no, unless you meet the exceptions. It is allowed up to 8 weeks post-fertilization age, which is that's the language from the bill, which isn't too terribly different from the medical recommendation for when they can be done now, but it has to be done by a physician connected to a hospital or a hospital-owned surgery center. Oh, Penny, I say that. Yes, absolutely. It does allow for lethal fetal anomalies, and I should have included that with the exception. Thank you for bringing that up, and we will talk about that. Yeah. This is the abortion pill is basically talking about Plan C, or RU486 as it's sometimes called, and it's a 2-step process. All right, the next one. Can I go to Planned Parenthood? No. Under the abortion ban, they cannot perform any type of abortion. Abortions can only be done at surgical centers that are either freestanding and majority owned by a hospital or located in a hospital. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to talk about 2 of the main exceptions, which are rape and incest. I've been raped. Can I get an abortion? Yes. You can get an abortion before 10 weeks post-fertilization if you've been raped or are the victim of incest. Do I have to prove I was raped or the victim of incest? Sort of. You don't have to sign an affidavit or report it to the police. These were things that were discussed early on with the bill, and there were amendments proposed around this. It's really now on the doctor. The doctor has to write up documentation with the reasons for the abortion, and they can get in legal trouble if they don't do it correctly, but you won't. Next slide. So what if this were your situation? We are pregnant, 15 weeks along. You discover that something's really wrong with the baby. The baby will not live long after birth and or may die before birth. Can I get an abortion? Yes, this is the lethal fetal anomalies. And that can be done up to 20 weeks post-fertilization, and it must be correctly documented by the doctor, or the doctor again gets in trouble. What if my life is at risk? Can my doctor terminate the pregnancy to save my life? Yes, up to 20 weeks post-fertilization. And I think anybody knowing this and reading this would think, so after 20 weeks, what exactly happens? I think the answer is we don't know, really. This language is not clear. It's very fuzzy. There's a lot of, this is part of what is making the doctors upset, is that it's not, there isn't clarity in the language. And I think we're looking at a situation where hospital lawyers and maybe insurance companies, I don't quite know how this will play out, I don't think any of us do yet, are going to be making these decisions, which is not what we want. Again, this is a sign of not having talked to and listened to the medical profession about how they work. Okay, next slide. I'm sorry, every time we go through this stuff, it's so hard. Woo! So, can a doctor go to jail or lose their license for performing an abortion? Yeah, if it falls outside of what is permitted legally. They can be charged with a level 5 felony, which can result in 1 to 6 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. This was as reported in the Indy Star. They actually also built out a task force that is going to be making sure that prosecutors are following up on cases and that they're going to be looking at how they can enforce this. If I have an illegal abortion, can I be arrested? No, not at this time. That could change in January. Part of what people who really wanted the ban were upset about is that there is not robust enforcement. And then finally, I help a friend get to Illinois for an abortion, say, can I be arrested? And the answer is no. That could change in January. They have not gone after contraception. They are not trying to go after IVF. They are not going, they tried to make a path for women with ectopic pregnancies and such. But all of that is subject to change in the future. They will come back in January, and it's definitely, I'm sure, all going to be on the table. Okay, we should just like take a breath for a minute. This is a lot to take in. And I want you to have your questions ready. I know people are popping things into the chat. We are going to try to take some time after we get through everything about the session to do this. But the story's not quite over yet. I want to share with you like some more about how this happened. So let's go to the next slide. So here's the thing. They voted. This is a matter of public record. We can look. What you see in front of you is the vote board that goes up when they are in the chamber, and they are voting on the, as I call it, on the floor, which means when all the state senators are together and they vote on a bill. So there are 50 senators, 39 are Republican, 11 are Democratic, and half of them are up for re-election this year. The vote on the floor, on the Senate bill, 4 legislators did not vote on the floor. There were 26 yeses and 20 votes against passing the ban. So votes that said, we don't want to ban abortion. 10 of these were, well, I should say, 10 of our votes were against the ban, and 6 of those were no's. They didn't want it because it was not restrictive enough. So I wasn't correct when I said the no's were saying, we don't want to ban abortion. Some of them were saying you're not banning it enough. And 4 of the Republican votes were because it went too far. All of the Democratic senators voted against the bill because it was too restrictive. Okay, let's go to the House vote. So here's the House vote. We have 100 representatives, 71 R's, and 29 Democratic representatives. All of the representatives are up for re-election this year. All of them were present, all 100 of them, and they voted on the ban. 62 voted yes, and 38 voted no. 9 R's voted against the ban, with 4 no votes because it was not restricted enough, and 5 no votes because it went too far. So we're only talking about the Republican bans because the Democratic part of the legislature did not want to have a ban at all. So they were united on that. It was the Republican supermajority that was having the fractures. So let's just remember that the public is so not on board with this abortion ban that the legislators had to add a family support bill. Remember I said that they took a gamble with this abortion ban, and they are trying with the family support bill that they passed. They were trying to change the odds that this wouldn't hurt them in their reelection efforts by passing something that they can point to and say, hey, we helped families, and to offset the impact on social services and families. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to hand this over to Mary, who's going to walk us through the family support part. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgianne. I'm Mary Cohen with Hoosier Action, and Georgianne has this amazing background and has so much experience. And I want to thank you for sharing what you did. So as Georgianne was saying, SB 2 was for family support. And this was something they began talking about in different press conferences and things, saying, oh, well, we're going to have this abortion ban, but we're going to make sure we take care of mothers and children and families. So the next slide will show you. So what they put forward was $45 million, which may sound like a lot of money. However, right now we have $6 billion surplus in the coffers of Indiana. They've been building that up and building that up. One of the reasons they say they have that is they want to maintain a great credit rating. They give some of that, they do spend some of it. However, in this case, it's such a small amount. It's 1% of the $6 billion. It gets a little more onerous than that when you see on the slide. Last year, they gave $50 million to the Arizona State Fairgrounds for a new swine barn. I'm going to give that a second for that to be absorbed. So what they're basically saying is the pigs of Indiana deserve $5 million more for their house, their new house. And it's pretty appalling. I don't think that that's a fact that has been out there enough. And I hopefully it will get there. So the $45 million, what's in that is not clear. And that's part of the problem. What they're doing is the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Health, under those two departments, they are the ones who are going to distribute that $45 million. We seriously have no idea where that $45 million is, who it's going to be allocated to. They have just somehow come up with this arbitrary amount of money, and it's not transparent at all. And believe me, we have dug and dug and dug to try and find out. What they added on the House bill, they added on another $29.2 million. So I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit, because we also have some tax credits. So they're increasing the adoption tax credit. They're increasing the tax credit for an adopted child who's a dependent. And they're also taking away the sales tax on diapers, which is not a whole lot of money. Right now, I think it comes down to $7 out of every $100 that you spend on diapers. The other $29 million that the House came up with, that has been line itemed out. However, it's still a lot of money that's going into grants. And so what that means is people are going to have to apply for some of this $29 million. They may have to apply for the 45 million, but since we don't know what they're going to do with that money, I'm just going to leave that one to the side. You can see that they have Medicaid services for donor milk, for services around that. Family nurse partnership, they're expanding that. And that is where you're getting a visiting nurse who can come for, I believe it's up to 2 years. However, it's for your first child only. So someone who is having their third child, they're not going to be able to take advantage of that program. The child care development piece of that, what that is to help people obtain child care. However, there is a gigantic waiting list right now. So if you consider, I think, Georgianne, if I'm not mistaken, they're saying there may be 8,000 extra births a year. Okay. So if you think about all of these different services that they're breaking out, think of maybe 8,000 additional people families are going to be trying to get this piece of the pie, if you will. I don't know how much anyone is familiar with baby boxes. They're placed at fire stations. They're hoping to expand that program. And they are already getting money from federal dollars, and they're already getting money from state dollars. So some of these are programs that are already in place that they're adding to. We have the safety pin grant program is supposed to protect Indiana newborns. However, what they've added into this program, and again, these are grant programs, so there are going to have to be people that have to apply for this, various organizations. But what they're going to be doing is, they had said at the very beginning, well, we're going to make sure that we can make contraceptives available. They were talking about having contraceptives. You're able to go into your drugstore and a pharmacist can prescribe your contraceptives. This program, they're adding $5.5 million to it. I'm not sure why they've chosen this program. And what it is doing is it's going to be given to different organizations like departments of health, not necessarily give away free contraceptives. And that's, again, all of this is so opaque that I wish I could give you firm ideas of this is where this is going. It is also going to go to organizations that use natural family planning, which is, for all the Catholics or ex-Catholics, is the Rhythm method, which is not a really, not a great contraceptive method. And the last part of this $29 million is to Real Alternatives, which is going to, basically, it's the pregnancy care centers. Now, as you can see, they're already getting $2.5 million in money. I'm not sure exactly if they're getting 2 million, if it is going to be a big pot of money, or again, if different organizations, different pregnancy care centers are going to have to try for this money, but it's going through the Real Alternatives, which is an organization based in Pennsylvania. And they've been under scrutiny for misappropriation of funds and not being transparent about how they're spending the money. Again, as Georgianne pointed out, the whole purpose of this special session was for relief money for Hoosiers. They talked about they were going to do $225. Now it's $200. There was an additional 125, which was supposed to be distributed. There are people that haven't even got their 200 or their 125. So the thing that was supposed to be helping every Hoosier is now turned into, really, they're running with this abortion bill. That's what the overriding thing became of this whole special session. There have been amendments put forward in various sessions, even for things like pregnancy accommodation. So having businesses have a place for mothers to go pump milk. That has not even had a chance. They were talking about comprehensive sex education. I don't think that's going to be included in any of this. So we are a state, we are third in maternal mortality. I think we're second in bad public health. So not second as in yay, but second as in boo. So again, as bad as all of the things that Georgianne followed or talked about, following up with something that they have touted as we are going to help families and mothers, basically is lip service. And I think what it's been is for them to try and make it look like there's a little bit of sweetness that they've added to this, when in reality, we don't know what they're going to do with this money. And at the bottom of this slide, you can see the funding for this is going to expire in their fiscal year, which is June of 2023. And the money goes back into the general fund. And as anyone who's dealt with any kind of grant procedures, you know that there's so much bureaucracy and it can take a long time to get things through. So long story short, when you hear about I think they're calling it now almost $70 million, really and truly, we're not sure where that $45 million is going to go. And even the pieces that they spelled out, it's still really, really opaque and frustrating. I wish I had a happy note, but think about the swine barn and use that as, this is just a really good example of what can actually, they can move $50 million that quickly and for something like that. And they can't seem to cover things that Hoosiers really, really need. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Mary, for walking us through all of that. It's sobering to hear. So I just saw Jenny, who wants to come practice in maternal care or be an OBGYN in Indiana. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about that too. So I feel really fortunate to be able to introduce a special guest speaker. We have Professor Jody Madeira. She's professor of law at the Maurer School of Law at Indiana University. And Jody, I just wanted to invite you to share with us your perspective on like how the legal situation is going to change. If there's insights that you can share, that would be awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jody.
Sure. I'll keep this pretty short. So hi, I'm joining you from Franklin in a parking lot of the Meijer. So that's the scenic background. So I think I'm going to break this down into two areas. First of all, in a number of states, there have been challenges that abortion providers or family planning clinics have brought to various laws. And Louisiana is one of them. In Texas, there's another. And they basically claim that there is a right under the state constitution to substantive due process ideas, to privacy, to abortion. And these lawsuits are successful in delaying implementation of the laws, but they really have not been successful long-term in preventing courts from later going back and saying, yes, these laws are constitutional. In Indiana, I would guess that any challenge that we would face, for example, that Planned Parenthood would bring, might result in a brief pause in implementation, but I think it's ultimately going to fail. I think they're going to find that the state constitution doesn't have those protections. There's a couple of things which we anticipate facing in the spring. But first, I'll get to sort of an illegal response that has been very promising, and that's the response from the businesses. And so there has been massive resistance from businesses, including the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Cummins announced that they're considering action. Eli Lilly has announced that all future projects are going to be outside Indiana. And so the more pressure we can put on dollars, like the religious freedom RFRA, era, that made a huge difference. It will make a difference then as well. And so there, I think, are pretty bad things coming in the spring. And so as bad as what we face now is, I think it's going to get worse. So for those of you who did not tune into the Senate hearings, Michael Young, who's a senator, conservative senator, was very concerned, as he put it, that babies were dying. And he said, basically, we have to stop this at any cost. And he posed a number of amendments that I think we will be seeing in the spring. He would make everybody who provided assistance to a woman seeking an abortion, including travel, including medication, he would make that a felony level 5, equal with the doctor. That's very serious. There is also another part of the bill, and I'm sorry, I logged in right at 7:14. So there's part of the bill that talks about a task force that's going to be set up for something called a Non-Compliant Prosecutor Act. So you guys might have heard that Ryan Mears in Marion County already announced that he is not going to prosecute anyone for any abortion-related charges. Well, that got the legislature's attention. There was a non-compliant prosecutor bill basically allowing the Attorney General, yes, Attorney General Todd Rokita of, doctor persecution witch hunt fame, to step in on the local level and prosecute any case which the prosecutor refuses to prosecute. And this bill was introduced actually in this past legislative session. It failed because of opposition from the State Prosecutors Association. So they brought it back. And there were 6 amendments out of 62 on the Senate side that had to deal with non-compliant prosecutors. So what we have right now is there's a task force, 4 senators, including 1 minority, 4 representatives, including 1 minority, and by minority, Democrat, and as well as a representative of the State Prosecutors Association and a representative of the State Public Defenders Association. And they're going to get together soon. And by December, they're going to recommend one of 3 alternatives. Either if a prosecutor refuses to prosecute in an abortion-related case, then one of 3 things will happen. They will appoint a local prosecutor, they'll allow Attorney General Todd Rokita to step in, or they'll allow a local prosecutor to take the prosecution in an adjacent county. And so all of these don't only relate to the abortion provisions, they relate to any provision within the Indiana Criminal Code. And so that's devastating. And again, it's non-transparent. So I also believe that we'll see enhanced provisions for physicians, and we might also see a civil provision basically allowing fathers, grandparents, anyone to sue those who aid or abet the women getting an abortion or the abortion physician. That was also a Michael Young amendment. And those amendments had a lot of support. They're there in other state laws like Texas. And so I think that there is a real danger that we will actually see a bill with criminal punishments against those who aid and abet women, a bill with criminal punishments against, women themselves, perhaps. And also of note, for the rape and incest exception, women have to file affidavits to use that exception. Women can be prosecuted immediately right now after September 15th for basically putting false information in that affidavit. But these affidavits are supposed to be confidential under the state law. So we're still not sure who can access them and how women's rights will be violated there. Yes, I saw a question in the chat that basically the authority to appoint someone else to prosecute either in an abortion related case or in a marijuana case, it applies to all provisions of the criminal code in Indiana law. Yes, that's not restricted to abortion. So, and again, we've seen how Attorney General Todd Rokita handles these sensitive cases. He goes and, makes a fool of himself on Fox News. So, very, very troubling. Very few people know that the non-compliant prosecutor is a possibility, and it's going to happen. We have a task force right now that's meeting that is determining how to put it into effect. Georgianne, they removed the requirement that the affidavit be notarized. I don't think they removed the affidavit.
They did, I think. They
Yes,
did.
they did remove the affidavit.
Yes.
In the House.
Okay, because I know they removed the notarization, but there were a lot of people who were in favor of the affidavit itself.
We'll put that in you're probably right. We'll figure it out.
Let's figure it out. But it's
Yeah.
very telling how confusing this is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jody,
I
did you
think-
have any more background to give? I was going to open it up for questions, but
I have none. I think that's it. And again, it's just, I think, add that to the spring semester affidavits, right? Because we don't trust women.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to take some time and just open it up for questions and discussion. So if you put a question in the chat, I'd speak it into the room now, or if you saw a good question in the chat, and we'll get through as many as we can. And just know we on the Hoosier Action team are not attorneys. We are trying to figure this out, and it's a shifting landscape. But I think many of us watched as much of the session as we possibly could, and so we have at least that background. All right, so questions for anybody?
I captured a few questions in the chat earlier. So someone asked about the task force, determining the legality of a particular abortion. And they were wondering who was on that task force, and were any of them medical, like providers or doctors?
I don't know the answer to that. Georgianne, do you know the answer to that?
I'm not sure. Could you? Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like I want to grab some of these questions and send them to legislators and ask them to explain all of this to us.
Yeah.
Because they really,
Georgianne, I think if I remember,
Mhm.
in testimony, I think one of the Democrats brought up the question if they could have a medical, someone in the medical field on that task force, and I don't think that there was an answer in the affirmative there. So,
No.
but again, there was a lot that went on in a really quick amount of time. And so I think
Yeah.
that's something to get the definitive answer.
Yeah.
We'll have to go back and look.
Yeah. So I see in the chat a couple of questions. Denise, you were asking about the chances of it coming up for a vote. Are you thinking like a Kansas type situation? Oh, yes, there you go. Yeah. My understanding is that we could have a non-binding vote that would be on the ballot. And in fact, there were legislators who proposed that and encouraged that.
Oh, so is there any effort being made to get that participation sort of
No.
thing?
No. And
Oh.
you know why? Because
Oh,
they
well,
know
I heard-
how it would turn out.
Exactly. Well, oh no, I heard them actually say that it was too late to get it on the ballot for the fall. The ballots are already printed and they can't reprint them or anything. That,
Yeah.
how's that for some BS? But
Well,
yeah, that's why
yeah.
I'm so interested. I think if they gave the vote to the people all over, it would
Yeah.
win.
Well,
Yeah.
didn't the head of the House say, oh, we couldn't put it up because it's too complicated an issue and people couldn't decide? We couldn't
I-
phrase it the
Wow.
right way. I'm almost certain that was the
I
case.
think
I think
saw
that was part of it.
And I also saw, well, the people elected their representatives and senators to do these decisions for them. And so they kind of threw it back that way as well.
Does anybody
Melissa-
know what it actually takes to get a, for the people to want to vote on something? Is that a fairly easy explanation somebody could provide?
We don't really have that in Indiana like other states do, not in the same way.
The only thing that regularly gets put on the ballot is constitutional changes. So if it's a change to the Indiana state constitution, it goes on the ballot, but we're not like Oregon, California, Missouri, states that have ballot initiatives that can change statutory law. It's just the Constitution.
Yeah.
Well, if
Which is
what,
actually true in
so,
Kansas too, but to ban abortion required a constitutional change there.
Yeah.
So that's why it.
right. So I mean, there would have to be like a grassroots takes forever sort of thing to get an amendment to the Indiana Constitution to allow abortion.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'll just add, Denise, Lane put this in the chat. In order to even get it on the ballot, it would have to go through the Indiana General Assembly. So
And they have no interest.
yeah, so it would be like as much, if not more work to get the ballot initiative passed through the assembly than actually like changing the laws. And as Lane pointed out, it actually has to be passed by 2 consecutive General Assemblies sessions. So it would be more
Oh
work
my
than
gosh.
just changing the law.
Yeah.
That's
Melissa,
so sad.
oh, sorry. Melissa Phelps brought up the thing about medical terminology, and I think that points to the muddiness of the language. I actually checked, and there is a specific definition of abortion in the Indiana Code, in other words, in our laws. And I think that that's part of the frustration and confusion for the medical people, because this language it's not their language, and that makes it really confusing and really pushes it into the hands, I think, of hospital lawyers who will be making these decisions for families.
I want to put another question out there that someone asked earlier, which was really great, which is what if I, as a non-medical professional who just happens to have a medication abortion, gives that medication, those abortion pills, to someone? What would happen to me legally?
I don't know. Jody, if you're still on the call, do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that. My gut is that it would be the unauthorized practice of medicine, because these are prescriptions, and otherwise there would be a huge end run around the requirements that you must fulfill once an abortion physician gives these pills to women, such as that they need an exam, they need to be present in the clinic at the time. It's I think a mess. But the other thing is enforcement. Like, if women order these pills from overseas, who's going to check their mail? And as someone in the chat said, who's going to stop everyone crossing the border?
Yeah. I thought I would return just for a moment to the question of the affidavit. I think what happened instead was that they put the pressure on the doctor. The doctor has to have a certificate, and they're laying all kinds of traps for doctors in this. That's kind of all over the place. And then the process of reading this bill over and over again, I actually went ferreting out like what other kinds of felonies might be related to this. And it's if anyone else has different information, I'd be interested. So this thing about parent and guardian for minors having to sign off on an abortion. If it's the case, they did say that in the legislature this session, they did say if it's a case of incest, it doesn't have to be a parent or a guardian signing off. I was like, small favors. Okay, thanks. But also that if you falsify a certificate, if you claim to be someone's parent or guardian and you are not, I read it in the code is that's a level 6 felony. That's like up there with strangulation and criminal stalking. That's a big deal.
No, level 6 is low, is a low felony.
It is?
Yeah, that level
must
6
be
is what they
wrong.
moved back into the local jails.
Okay. Well, it still sounded scary to me. Sounded serious. Equating it with strangulation seems serious.
Yeah, there's level 3, level 5, and level 6 felonies that we're having to get ready for. I'm working on a resolution for the city of Bloomington for the Safety Commission, and we're
Yeah.
looking at all the details, and it's just an ugly mess.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to document that I am not a lawyer. So. Are there other questions?
People have questions about strategy or like, that's actually where much more of our expertise lays. Although we've tried to get up to speed on the new law, and I would say it seems very clear that what is law right now is going to change when they come back to convene in January. And that whether it gets better or worse is going to be how much pressure they feel between now and then, and how versus how emboldened they feel. But if people have questions about like, what is it going to take? Or actually, like the Republican caucus is not monolithic. A whole bunch of them spoke out against this. Or like, what are the sets of allies we need to build? And I think Eva's going to hit on this later, but I'll just say it again, like geography really matters. So we need a movement that is spread across our state. Even there's a concentration of people in Marion County and Lake County area. This cannot be won by those geographies alone at all. Actually, we need to spread out and start to build. And we are across Southern Indiana, but the geography of this fight really matters too. Okay, Andrew has his hand up.
Hi, so I'm in the Lafayette area, and there has been a lot of communication, especially like on Purdue and everything like that, that what are we actually capable of doing legally? You know, it's the legal movement and everything like that. Because let's be real, like we have too many of, majority of people are like on the fence and don't really know which way to push and everything. And my whole thing is like, well, everyone's kind of, excuse my French, pissed off about, farming, how big farmer is right now, and Cummings and just all of these other industries are now coming out and about afterwards and kind of doing their, damage control mission and everything like that when they were absent for the last year or so when all this is going on. So then you have people that are afraid about, but the job market is how it's looking right now. And we have, so I'm just trying to understand, like, if we can't convince those people about this particular subject matter, then what are the closest things that we can, as far as like, money wise and everything is impacting them negatively. So, and how it can kind of correlate and translate back, not taking the eyes off this topic whatsoever, but like, how can we convince more of the naysayers about how, this is directly impacting you as well, that they're not speaking on or talking about, kind of push that conversation towards that direction as well for November and January.
And when you say change people's minds, do you mean the people in power or the people people like us?
Us. Because I mean, yeah, they're not changing
you
their
think
minds
we
unless they
need
get enough
to?
blowback.
Do you think we need to change minds? Because part of me feels like that 16% of Hoosiers that is just staunchly in this corner, we can ignore them.
I think so too. We gotta get people to vote.
Yeah.
We gotta get
Yeah.
those people voted out. That's the only thing we can do. That Houston said it. He that's what he said. You got to vote them out. Well, that's what we got to do. And we got to do it each individual spot, just like you said, Kate. I mean, in Columbus, Brian Lauer and Greg Walker, that's the ones that are on the target for us.
Yeah.
I know Mary's involved in that too, probably, because I know her from the past.
And now from the present. I'll say one more thing about the businesses, because it's totally fine to they were late to the game. They came out late. It's extraordinarily frustrating given the weight they play. When I when I moved back home to Indiana, the way politics was explained to me at the state capitol is there's two poles of power, the business community and the Christian right, and there is no one else contesting for power in that landscape. That's changed significantly over the last 5.5 years. But so I want to say, feel your feelings about these businesses, but in this fight, we need them to come out, and they have come out. So we need even more of that.
Hi, this is Jody. And there's another thing too, like even in terms of talking to people, like in contexts where these things don't really come up, like swim practice. Women don't know what's going on out there. Women don't know there's been a bill. They don't know what it says. They don't know how restrictive it is. And so the more we can talk to people and educate them, the better off we will be as well.
Yeah. So Nick asked a question about what are we going to do, and I don't have like a 10-year plan to roll out, and hopefully it'll be a 5-year plan. Right now we're trying to figure out, we're on a path. There's a reason why Mary presented on the family support bill, because we want to build a long-term fight that's actually centering families, and put abortion care as one of the key things that families need to thrive in our state, not separate, but as a part of like childcare, like access to healthcare. It is part of comprehensive healthcare. So what we want to do is both start playing in electoral politics. So we're running a experimental campaign this fall about how do we talk to people, like Jody was saying, that aren't kind of already steeped in politics, but are living their lives, particularly kind of in rural areas and small towns, to bring them into the fight for families, of which abortion care is really at the center. So we're going to be doing that. And then we're going to make a run at the state legislature to win a child tax credit, so that we're driving, again, this like organized base of people outside of the cities that are calling on what families need and holding their legislators to account, because those are the legislators that really need to be held to account. In 2023, we want to train and run members to run for office at the local level. And then we want to be really, really ready for 2024 with a pretty strong electoral muscle outside of the urban core, to start to put more legislators in place. And we're a 501c4, so I can talk like this, if you were wondering. Try to put more legislators in place at the state capitol in 2024, and potentially have families first at the center of the governor's campaign. That's what I got so far, but really it's going to be you. It's going to be lots and lots of people deciding, like, it's not, it's a little bit every day that needs to get moved forward. It's not quitting your job and doing this full time. It's a breadth and expansion of people who understand that power is what's going to win this back for us, not emotions, not morality, sheer power. And we have it, it's just very disorganized, meaning not organized into a block of people and a base that can actually move and win electorally.